Hello YouTube, welcome back. This is part 2 of my cold steel Viking hand axe preparing for field trial use video series. And I have to apologize, I lied in my last video. I said the next video I was going to do would be sharpening, but it's a lot safer to do all of your major work before you sharpen the axe or the tomahawk. So what we're going to talk about today is refinishing Tomahawk head and the handle. I'm going to show you the quickest and easiest way that I found to remove the ugly plastic coating from the heads of the tomahawks and the whatever lacquer finish that they put on the handles. They're not bad finishes, and actually the head finish is pretty robust and it's pretty tough, and I've seen a lot of guys struggle with removing it, and some people don't know about the industrial paint strippers that will speed the process up immensely. So that's what we're going to talk about right now. Talk about stripping the handle down, stripping the head down, preparing it for applying a new finish, and the choices of finishes, some of the choices of finishes that we have. So anyways, let's dive right into it. First thing you're going to want, if you so choose to do this, perfectly fine to leave the finish on there. Personally, myself, I just think the finish, actually this one's not too bad. It's like a clear coat or maybe a little bit of a gray paint. But the black finish on the axes and tomahawks, to me, looks a little tacky. But it is a pretty stout finish, so you're not doing yourself any disservice by leaving it on there. In any case, the things you're going to need, if you do choose to refinish your head, basically you're going to want some heavy-duty paint stripper, some good stuff. Now you can buy this. There's another brand out there, I think it's called Aircraft, for me anyways. The Clean Strip brand works really well. I've had really good luck with this. I buy it in these cans because I do a lot of stripping, but only on the weekends. Anyways, you're going to want something to kind of loosen the material up after it starts to soften up, and I just use a little brass gun cleaning brush, like so. You can use a larger brush if you want, or just a rag will work. But I found that the paintbrush really helps, or the metal bristled brush really helps to remove all the paint down in the pores and the crags and crevices of the tomahawk head. So, alright, let's get started. First thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you're not around anything that has a paint surface on it that could get splashed on, because this stuff will destroy paint finishes in a matter of seconds. And you want to make sure you're wearing gloves. If the stuff gets on your skin, it will burn, even if you're not a sissy like me. I wear 2 pairs of gloves. You'll see the first layer of gloves will actually get eaten away pretty quick. So that's the layer. That's the word of caution for the day. Don't get this stuff on your hands, and do not get it in your eyes. So to set yourself up for success here, what you're going to want is something to protect your table. Generally, the shipping carton that the Tomahawk comes in makes a very good protective layer for your table. And you're going to want a tub of water, the stripper, and the brush. Okay? Let's get a close-up here. Alright, here we go. Hopefully you guys can see okay. And I'll show you how well this stuff works. See. Now this stuff does come with a spray bottle, but pretty much I found that it clogs up and it doesn't work very well. So, what we're going to do, I just take a little bit and basically just spread it around and give it a few minutes and let it do its thing. The nice thing about the cardboard is anything that spills onto it, basically the cardboard kind of soaks it up and keeps it from running all over the dang place. I can feel it start to work. Feel the brush kind of digging in, and there you can see how quick it's working. I'm hoping that'll pick that up a little bit. It's actually lifting up the finish, and you can see it thickening like a slurry. So basically, just let it work in and do its thing. Don't forget to get the inside of the eye. Now this stuff's a little tougher to tell exactly how far along you are, because it's pretty much just a clear coat. If you're doing one of the black Tomahawks, the black coating on it, it'll be a lot easier to see how far down you're getting. But basically what I like doing is, you'll kind of know when it stops working, and then you want to rinse it off and repeat as many times as it takes to get all the coating off. So basically, all you have to do to rinse it off is rinse it in some water. Yeah, I got most of it off, but there's a little bit left on some of the edges. I'm going to go ahead and dry this off and reapply the paint stripper to it. Do it again. Just let that sit for a few minutes and work its way in. It's important not to let it sit too long because this stuff dries really fast. And once it dries, you pretty much have to put more of the paint stripper on to get it off. Now I'm going to rinse this off again. See what we have. Alright, so it's really tough to see because there's no color in this. I think I've got most of it off, but I can still see a little bit in a few spots that I'm going to have to hit again. Any of it that you don't get off, that'll keep the bluing from sticking to the metal and it'll look blotchy. And like I said, the colored coatings are a lot easier to get off because they're a lot easier to see. So, do one more. I think one more coat ought to do it, and then we'll be ready to move on to the handle. Alright, so we're going to let this sit for a minute. While we let that sit, we can move on to the handle. Same thing as the head. Basically, just apply the stripper, let it sit for a few minutes, use the brush to work it loose, get as much of the finish off as you can. It's kind of the same thing. Whatever finish you don't get off will keep any new finish from applying to it. So it's going to look blotchy. So you want to do a pretty good job getting this stuff off. Now I've noticed with the handle, you really want to let it sit for a few minutes because it seems like the coating that they put on here kind of works down into the wood. So we'll let this sit for a few minutes, we'll come back and brush it out. Alright, so we've let this sit for a while. And the wood's kind of soaked up most of the paint stripper, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just means that it's cutting through and it's working on the finish. So we're going to go ahead and put another layer on and work it in with the brush. I basically just go until I start seeing the brush work into the wood grain, because then I know it's cut through what they put on there and it's scraping it up. I don't want to go too far and permanently scar the handle up with a bunch of scratch marks from the wire brush, because you can't overdo it and then it looks a little rough on the end product. If you don't want to mess with all these chemicals, you can definitely do all of this with sandpaper. Do it all by hand. It will take a long time. Nothing wrong with that, just that it will take a long time. You can see I just put this pair of gloves on and they're already getting kind of gummy from this stuff. A little more on there. And once you get through the finish, you got to work pretty quick because this stuff does dry very fast and it soaks into the wood very quickly. And I don't want to load the wood up with a bunch of this gummed up stuff that I'm trying to get off of here, because then it won't accept the stain that you're trying to put into it later. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. You can kind of see there's a bit of a color difference. It's going to start getting real pale looking, in my experience anyways. Once I start getting to that point, pretty sure I've got most of it off. I'm going to go ahead and do the same as what we did with the head. Just going to rinse it off in water. I can feel the difference on the wood now. I can feel there's no finish on there. That's good. That's what we're going for. Just want to rinse it off real good. Get down in any of the bits of grain that are open. Get all that coagulated junk out of there. So you're left with a nice clean blank slate to work with when you go to refinish it. Dry it off, and then look for any shiny spots. Make sure you didn't miss anything. If you missed anything, just hit it with a little bit of stripper and get it off there. So I'll clean this up. I'll get the table cleaned up. We'll talk about refinishing the head. So see you guys in a minute. Alright guys, this video is going to run a little long, so I'm going to try and condense things down a little bit at this point. Basically, right now, what we should have is a stripped down Tomahawk handle, or an axe handle, and a stripped down head. Basically, both of them should be ready for a new finish. So let's talk about new finishes. First thing with the handle. Right now is a good idea to think about whether or not you want to put any sort of decoration or design or pattern into your handle. You want to do that before you choose and apply a finish. So basically, I keep it simple, a little bit of wood burning. Basically, I did this with a soldering iron, and I do this with a small torch. Something sort of like this. Just basically burn the rings into it. You don't want to go too deep, or you'll really scar the wood. But you want to go deep enough to where it leaves a lasting impression. The other thing you can do is take a small file and file some grooves into it. Give yourself some traction. So I just use a chainsaw file grooves in there, follow it up with a wood burner, kind of give it a darkened band look, and that'll give you a lot of grip. And it looks kind of nice too. I think so anyways. So if you're going to do any of this kind of stuff, you can definitely go on the internet, look for different designs out there. There's a lot of people doing some really cool stuff. So after you get any kind of design on there you want, you can choose what type of finish you want. Now basically this is wood. That's all. You're just finishing wood, and there's probably thousands of different ways you can do it. Personally, how I prefer to finish these, I just use a food grade butcher block conditioner, and it works really well. I like it. Pretty much done all of my axes and all of my tomahawks with this stuff, and protects it really well. It puts a pretty nice, gloss to it without being too shiny, and it really makes the any of the burning that you do kind of pops out from the wood. So that's what I use mainly. I've also used boiled linseed oil, and obviously you guys can use whatever you want, but that's what I like to use. But anyways, let's talk about the head. Again, with the head, it's kind of the same as the handle. There's probably 1,000 different ways you could coat this, or you can leave the factory coating on there. Basically, the two things that I like to use are just a cold blue. This is Birchwood Casey's Perma Blue Paste Gun Blue, and this is one that I've actually done with it. Turns into nice dark black. I think this is 3 coats, 3 applications. It looks pretty nice. Just dulls down the kind of bright, gleamy metal. Makes it a little darker. The other finish I like is this plum brown, made by the same company, but this is not a cold application. This actually requires you to heat the metal up. So you want to be careful with it, read and follow the directions. Shouldn't have any problems with messing with your temper, but do your own research, check it out. But it does look pretty nice, just a little different color. And I found with this stuff, it looks better on a smoother finished metal to my eye. It just brings the brown out more. Otherwise, if you put it on a non-sanded head, it has a tendency to just kind of come out of a almost black. I mean, it loses some of the color because of the texture. Anyways, so those are the 2 finishes I use. I'm gonna cut away here, and I'll probably film me applying the finish to this, but I'm really not going to say a whole lot just because you really should be just following the directions that whatever kit you buy comes with. But just to show the general idea of how you would apply a cold bluing, I'm going to go ahead and record this. Alright guys, so there you go. It's that easy. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. It's kind of a little hobby. And the nice thing about the Tomahawks, or these pole axes, whatever you want to call them, is that if you get tired of looking at a specific handle, you can go ahead and change it out. That's kind of the fun of it. Different wood, different patterns, different designs. You know, you can kind of have a lot of fun with it. Make it its own little hobby, trying to collect different exotic woods to make handles out of. I know I enjoy it, and it gives me a reason to go out and look for wood and stuff. So, anyways, all right. I'm going to go ahead and refinish this head, and we'll see how it turns out.
After a week sailed off. The ship was full of lumber, and they towed the rowboat loaded with grapes. As they looked back at the shore, Leaf said, "I will call this country Wineland for the grapes that grow there." One of the men leaped up on the gunwale and leaned out, clinging to the sail, and sang, "Wineland the good, Wineland the warm, Wineland the green, the great, the fat, our dragon fed and crawls away, with belly stuffed and lazy feet, how long her purple trailing tail, she fed and grew to twice her size." More glad of anything than to see this Thorbjorn. They were friends before we left Iceland. When they saw each other again, they could not talk enough of old times. In the spring, Eric means to give him a farm up the fjord away. Not been in Iceland for years. Thorbjorn spent on it all the wealth that he had left. For he said to himself, "I will not leave in shame. Men shall remember my last feast."
On an autumn, a year or 2 after Leif came home, Eric and his men saw 2 large ships come to land, not far down the shore from the house. "They look like trading ships," Eric said. "Let us go down to see them." "I will go too," Gudrid said. "Perhaps they will have rich cloth and jewelry." "There is no need of that," Thorfinn said, "for this dress is yours, and anything else from my chests that you like. Here is a necklace that I beg you to take. It did not have a fairer mistress in Greece where I got it." "You are a very generous trader," Gudrid said. Then Thorfinn gave Eric a great sword with a gold-studded scabbard. After a while he took them to Bjarni's ship. He also gave them gifts. They all talked and laughed much while they were together. "You are merry comrades," Eric said. "I ask you both, and all your men, to spend the winter at my house. You can put your goods in my storehouses." "By my sword, a generous offer," said Thorfinn. "As for me, I am happy to come." Bjarni and all the rest said the same thing. Thorfinn walked to the house with Eric and Gudrid, while the other men sailed to sit at Argagla. "And yet," Thorfinn said, "another time we might have better weather. I have never seen so fair a land as this seems to be." Then he went to Leif and talked long with him. Leif told him in what direction he had sailed to come home, think I could find my way, Orphan said. My heart moves me to try this frolic. He spoke to Gudrun about it. Oh, yes, she cried, let us go. It is long sunning myself in a warm light. They sailed on and passed those shores that Leif had spoken of. Whenever they saw any interesting place, they sailed in and looked about and rested there. They had gone far south past Nixon. These shall be our houses, Thorfinn said. They were strange. He and some others ran up there. The people on shore heard them shout. Soon they came running back with their hands full of. So they went and stood on the shore. Soon the men from the canoes landed and stood looking at the Norsemen. The stranger's skin was brown, talked fast. They seemed to like my cloak, Brownie said. One of the strangers went down to their canoes and soon came back with an armload of furs, fox skins, otter skins, beaver skins. The chief took some and held them out to Thorfinn and hugged the cloak to him. He wants to trade, Thorfinn said. Will you do it, Bjarni? At supper that night they talked about the fight for a long time. I will not stay here, Gudrun said. Perhaps these wild men have gone away to get more people and will come back and kill us. Oh, they are